2020 SOD Death Blitz, and I am thrilled that you're able to help us this year. A couple of tools that you're going to need for this. The first, most importantly, is the Avenza app on your phone. If you haven't already loaded it in the past, be sure to load the app and then follow the instructions included in your packet for how to download the map that will show you all of the Avenza, will show you all of the SOD Death points. Normally we would have our get together on Saturday morning and I'd go over all the how-tos, but clearly it's not normal these days. So hopefully this will help in place of our normal gathering, and you can always feel free to contact me with any questions. The first step is to get that Avenza app and then use it to navigate to your point. So you'll be hiking along, and as you walk along, you might come across one of these red dots on the trees. In general, the red tags are located on the same side of the trail for an entire transect. So right now we're on the San Jose Creek Trail, and as we walk along towards the hacienda, our points will all be on our right. Ideally, they're at about eye height. Sometimes brush has grown, sometimes trees have fallen, so you may find that sometimes they're not quite as consistent, and sometimes they actually have handwritten numbers on them because they went missing this past year, and we've had to put in some temporary tags. Once you get to your tag, the tag may be on any kind of different tree. It could be a California bay, like this one. It could be a coast live oak. It could be a madrone. I've seen that one too. The tree that the tag is on is not the most important tree to sample. It's the point in which we're going to reference for the larger sampling. What you want to do is you're going to find your tag, and you're going to look for bay trees surrounding that. And we're going to sample within 30 to 40 feet of this red tag. So if you need a distance reference, if you are 5 foot or 5 to 6 feet, your arms are going to be about the same as your height. So I'm about 5.5 feet. So if I think, okay, I'm almost to the tree, this is about 10 feet. So that's a helpful reference. So think about 3 of these. I can sample out into the other side of the trail, and I can sample up. Once you've gotten a general reference for where you're going to go, you want to look at the bay leaves. In many cases, you may find a tree. Do be careful of all the poison oak. In many cases, you may find a tree that doesn't have anything very clearly with irregularities on the leaves. And when I say irregularities, I mean that there's like brown splotches or yellow dots and things like that. So these lower leaves are all pretty healthy looking. If a tree has any kind of infection on it, it typically will show up in the lower branches because it's getting dropped down over time by the rain. For example, there's a couple right here that I'll pull off to show you some signs of disease on this tree. So you can see that this one has brown and yellow speckles all over it, as does this one. It also has some very clearly grayed dead tissue, as does this one. These leaves are definitely infected with something, but this is not typical for SOD death. What we're looking for is a very specific appearance. Sometimes you might have to jump to get your leaves, but what we're looking for is something more along these lines, where you have a very clear brown area, a black or brown line that's very clearly distinct, and then a yellow margin. And it's going to be on the drip edge. So most leaves, it will be on the pointy end. Occasionally, if a leaf hangs out like this on the branch, you'll see it along here. Now this leaf also has some other discolorations on it that you can see. There's speckles and spots. Those are very unlikely to be SOD death. There are tens of different pathogens that can cause all kinds of symptoms, including the same symptoms as SOD death on these trees. So it's important to not think, oh my gosh, this tree is sick, because it could be anything, and only with laboratory tests can we tell if it's SOD death. There are really good pictures of what a classic SOD death leaf looks like in your packet, So please feel free to reference that. Don't feel like you have to collect leaves. If you find a tree and you can't find anything that gets even close to this appearance, that's fine. You can fill out one of the pink slips, and we'll go over that shortly. All right, on to the next part. All right, so last details for your how-to instructional video. In your packet, you've got a bunch of different supplies. You've got instructions that I've written up that walk you through all of the information that I've covered in this video so far. You want to spend about 3 to 5 minutes at each site once you've found your red sampling point and search all around the sampling point up to 30 to 40 feet for other bay trees that might have symptomatic leaves. Inside of your packet, there's also a form that's sent to us by the laboratory at UC Berkeley. If you have done any kind of bay treatments or chemical treatments of your trees or anything like that, they're really interested in this from a statewide perspective to understand how people are dealing with SOD on their property. We will fill one out for the preserve writ large, but it's really helpful if you've done activities on your property for you to fill this out. There's also their annual resource for what to look for. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but some of the key elements on the bay leaves, as I mentioned, is this brown tip with a dark black or brown border and a little bit of yellow. The speckling could or could not be SOD oak death. It's very unlikely. But this margin and brown tip and yellow band is really what's indicative. So looking back at the samples that we've already collected, I've gone through and pulled out a bunch of different samples that had weird things going on with the leaves. So the first group that I want to point out are the nose. These leaves here have elements to them that tell me they are probably not SOD oak death. You can see that the brown on these two leaves doesn't have that dark margin and it doesn't have the yellow. It's just green or brown. So those are probably not SOD oak death. These ones might be a little less clear because you see obviously the leaf itself has yellowed, but it also doesn't have that signature margin on either leaf. So I would say that those also are no's. It gets a little bit more murky when you start looking at these ones. This one seems to have the margin, but it doesn't have a lot of yellow. But I'd say it could be SOD oak death. This one as well. It has a bunch of different splotches, which don't necessarily orient with where the water is coming from, and it has a little bit of yellow. So I think that one's pretty suspicious. This one's a little bit uncertain, but if I was short on leaves, I might include this one because it does have the brown with the black margin with the yellow. This one is similar. Not quite tidy and clean like our examples, but could potentially be SOD oak death. These two are much more classic looking, particularly this one. You can see it's got that brown with the dark margin and then the yellow, and then the rest of the leaf is relatively healthy looking. So what I would do is you only need to include 5 leaves. So I would grab 5 of the leaves that I think look most likely. So here we go, we've got our 5 leaves. And then I'm gonna take my envelope and shove them inside of that. We'll put them in this envelope. Do not lick the envelope, please. It makes it much harder to get the samples out. You can just fold it over. With your leaves though, it's really important that you fill out one of the 2 options. If you have leaves that look symptomatic, like these leaves, you're gonna fill out one of these forms. And what that looks like is basically you're gonna put your name next to the collector, SOD tag, that's that red tag that you're sampling around, the date of your sampling effort, which species it is, bay or tan oak. 99% of you will be sampling bays. Don't worry about the metal tag. We're doing this all on private land. For the location, please write SLP SOD with the number of the red tag as well. It is redundant, but you have to remember that these pieces of data are all being entered into a spreadsheet. And so if you leave things empty, the undergraduates up at UC Berkeley who are entering the data will not fill in the blanks for us. Don't worry about lat and long for our red tag sites. One thing that I do want to mention is that on the envelope, please write SLP and then the tag number, that red tag number. It is hugely helpful for me when I'm going through to make sure that we have all the samples. One last element is that if you have bay trees around your yard that you would like to sample, you are more than welcome to. You would do all of this same effort with collecting the leaves, putting your leaves in your envelope. On it you would put SLP, and then you would put the lat long for that location here. And you can easily get that from the Avenza app that I've encouraged everyone to download for the transects. You would fill out a white form just like this. Tree, you can give it your own number because it's your tree in your yard. Your location would be SLP and then your name or your address if you want, and the lat and long. Again, you have to think about this as the scientists that are filling things in. The last element of this is if you find that you have a bay tree that doesn't have any symptoms, the whole thing looks super healthy, that's great. Don't feel like you need to pick one of these bad examples and put it in just in case. If you can't find sudden oak death symptoms or any kind of symptoms, that's fine. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna fill out a pink tag with these same information. You're gonna fill that pink tag out and you're just gonna slip that into the envelope all by itself without any leaves. If for some reason you are in one of those fortunate sites where there are not any symptoms on a lot of trees and you start running out of pink sheets, please just write pink on the form and they will know that it's a negative because you don't have any leaves in the envelope and the form says pink. All right, I think that is everything. Remember, don't seal the envelopes. Please do fill out the number and each of these elements of the tag. And the last thing is that on the front of the envelope, this is also really helpful for the lab. Put your name. The healthy number of trees is the ones that you looked at around the points. So say that you were at a SOD point and there were 5 bay trees. I like to just keep a little tally next to here of how many trees we looked at that didn't have leaves that were sick, and a tally of how many trees that we found did have symptoms that we collected leaves from. It's not your entire transect, it's just around the points. And that, I think, is all. So, I hope you guys have a wonderful Sudden Oak Death Blitz, and I really appreciate all of your help. Take care.